Your dog looks guilty. Science says it's reading you, not confessing. In 2009, animal cognition researcher Alexandra Horowitz at Barnard College ran a controlled experiment designed to test whether dogs actually feel guilt or simply perform it. Horowitz set up 4 conditions. Some dogs ate a forbidden treat, some didn't. Some owners were told their dog ate it, correctly or not. The guilty look appeared on cue, regardless of actual wrongdoing. Dogs whose owners believed they misbehaved, even when they hadn't, showed the most submissive displays. The trigger was the owner's posture and tone, not the dog's memory of any misdeed. What looks like guilt is appeasement signaling, a behavioral toolkit wolves already used to diffuse tension inside the pack, long before dogs ever lived beside humans. In wolf packs, a lower-ranking animal that senses aggression from a dominant one will crouch, avert its gaze, and expose its belly. The goal isn't confession. The goal is stopping conflict before it escalates. Dogs diverged from wolves at least 15,000 years ago. Across that span, the animals that survived beside humans were the ones best at reading and responding to human emotional cues. That's where the real explanation lives. Natural selection didn't produce dogs that feel complex moral emotions. It produced dogs that are extraordinarily sensitive to human displeasure, because that sensitivity kept them alive. Domestic dogs are one of the only non-human species that reliably follow a human's gaze to the right, not just toward food, but toward where a person is emotionally focused. A 2003 study by Miklosi and colleagues at Eötvös Loránd University in Budapest found that dogs outperformed both wolves raised by humans and chimpanzees at following human communicative gestures, including subtle eye direction shifts. But here's where it gets harder. If dogs are reading cues rather than feeling guilt, does that mean they feel nothing? The answer is more nuanced and more specific than a simple no. Dog brains contain a fully functional limbic system, the same ancient neural architecture that generates fear, attachment, and pleasure in humans. Dogs genuinely feel emotions. The question is, which ones and how complex? Neuroscientist Gregory Burns at Emory University trained dogs to lie still inside an fMRI scanner. In 2012, his team showed that the caudate nucleus, a region tied to anticipation of reward, lit up in dogs exposed to familiar human scents. Neuroscientists distinguish primary emotions, fear, joy, attachment, from secondary ones like guilt, shame, and pride, which require self-awareness and abstract moral reasoning. Dogs clearly have the first tier. The second remains genuinely unresolved. Return to that moment, the dog slinking away from the overturned trash can. It's not remembering a moral failure. It's detecting the exact shift in your posture, your breathing rate, your vocal tension that signals danger is coming. Dogs read emotional states partly through scent. A frightened or angry human releases distinct cortisol and adrenaline signatures. A dog's olfactory epithelium, the scent-detecting tissue, is roughly 40 times larger than a human's. In 2022, researchers at Queen's University Belfast demonstrated that dogs could detect human psychological stress from breath and sweat samples with 93.8% accuracy before any behavioral cue was given. Here's a question most people never think to ask. What is the dog experiencing in that moment? Not what it's performing, what it's feeling. The evidence points to something closer to anxiety than remorse. Research by Kirsten Uvnes Moberg and colleagues, measuring cortisol during aversive owner interactions, found genuine physiological stress, elevated heart rate, increased salivary cortisol, regardless of whether the dog had done anything wrong. This has a direct consequence for anyone who lives with a dog. Scolding an animal for something it did 40 minutes ago doesn't teach it a lesson. It teaches it that your arrival sometimes means danger and nothing more. Dogs form associations between a behavior and its consequence within roughly 2 seconds. Beyond that, the neural connection doesn't form. The moment is gone. What remains is only your current emotional state. Here's the counterintuitive part. The guilty look, the display designed to appease you, can reinforce your anger because it reads as admission. You feel validated. The dog grows more anxious. The cycle tightens. In Horowitz's original study, one dog, described in the paper as particularly expressive, showed the full guilty display, even having eaten nothing. Its owner, told incorrectly that it had eaten the treat, scolded it anyway. The display intensified with each word. What this reveals is a cognitive adaptation documented in no other domesticated species. Dogs, but not hand-raised wolves, not goats, not horses, spontaneously check a human's face for guidance when confronted with an unsolvable problem. That referential gaze is the product of 15,000 years of selection pressure, not generalized tameness. When a dog and a human make eye contact, both release oxytocin, the same neurochemical that bonds parents to infants. A 2015 study by Nagasawa and colleagues in Japan confirmed this cross-species loop operates in both directions simultaneously. The guilty look is the most visible example of a much larger truth. Nearly every behavior your dog shows you is a response to your emotional state, not an independent report on its own inner life. For most of human history, we've interpreted dog behavior through a human emotional lens. That lens isn't wrong, it just describes the wrong animal. Dogs are the only domesticated species known to spontaneously use a human's eye direction as a social referencing cue, a capacity that even chimpanzees don't reliably deploy toward humans. That's not a small human. That's a genuinely distinct kind of mind. Here's what remains genuinely unresolved. Whether dogs have any form of episodic memory, the ability to mentally replay a past event. If they do, the question of guilt becomes far more complicated than Horowitz's study alone can answer. Claudia Frugazza at Eötvös-Loránd University in Budapest has been investigating whether dogs can recall specific past actions using a method called Do As I Do. Her 2016 findings suggest dogs retain some form of incidental memory, though its depth remains contested. Return one last time to that dog at the overturned trash can. It's not confessing, it's not remembering, it's doing something more sophisticated, reading the precise emotional weather of another species and responding in real time. Here's what that 2-second window actually means. Your dog is perpetually available to learn right now from whatever you do next. Every interaction is a live training moment, not a referendum on what happened while you were gone. The animal in front of you is always in the present tense. The most useful thing you can take from this: if you come home to a mess, Your dog's reaction tells you nothing about what happened. It tells you only what it reads in you right now. Respond to that animal, not the story you're telling yourself.